So let's talk about Asian family drama and weddings. How I avoided all that at my wedding. It really came down to it's me and my husband's day, not anyone else's, but it's a lot trickier than you think for anyone who's married and gone through it. So before I rant about, so this is going to be a two-parter. The first part is going to be things that I had no control over and helped me. And then the second part is going to be about things that you can have, that I had control over that helped me avoid a lot of that Asian family drama. I'm not even going to rant about all the family drama that can happen whenever someone of Asian descent who have immigrant parents announces that they're engaged. And because there are things that I had absolutely no control over that helped me avoid a lot of this stuff. So the first one being that I'm the youngest of my family. So I've got two older sisters. I'm the youngest. My husband is also the youngest. He has an older sister. And so as the youngest, there's definitely a lot less pressure to meet family and social expectations. And the reason being, because both sides, for us, both sides had already gone through a wedding before. So they got their itches scratched, their anxieties dampened, all their traditions fulfilled. They got their needs met at the previous wedding. And so by the time their youngest the next one comes around, the youngest offspring decides to get hitched, it's kind of anticlimactic, right? And they're more focused on you guys having grandkids than the actual wedding, at least in our experience. And from your experience, as the youngest, perhaps they learned their lesson the first time around. Getting yelled at by your daughter or son during the tea ceremony while getting blamed for spreading a rumor about a certain niece going on academic probation doesn't really create fond memories for Asian parents or Asian families. Or perhaps emptying out entire wallets to please, people-pleasing a ridiculous, 500 plus number of guests, only to be left with gossip and negative criticism about not including bird's nest soup and abalone on the menu, will have left a bitter taste in their mouth. So perhaps being the youngest has helped, and the first time around for the eldest to have gotten married, they got their itches scratched. So when my eldest sister got married, she got the brunt of the traditions, and to be honest, I can't tell you most of them because I wasn't really involved. At the time when she got married, I was 23. I was living my life, right, as any early 20s person would. Having just graduated university, you're kind of just figuring yourself out as an adult, not in school anymore. And I just did what my sister told me to, what the bride said, you do. And so, but many Asian kids, her and my brother-in-law had to do two weddings. Most people do. Have you ever seen Ronnie Chiang's stand-up comedy on Netflix? He went this crazy wedding, and I think he did it in New York, in Australia, and in Malaysia. So he did 3 weddings. But most Asian kids, I would say, do probably 2. And so one wedding where they live, and one wedding in where my dad demanded a small dinner in Hong Kong. So in many ways, I'm grateful for my birth order because, despite all the horrible things of being associated with being the youngest, I've heard we're less intelligent, we're more spoiled, and we're more risky people, boo, I demand more research as I stomp my feet. But of course, even though you're the youngest, there are exceptions, right? There are some Asian families who just can't escape the family drama because, especially if most of the aunts and aunties and uncles and everyone immigrated to your area as well. And with especially true for massive families. And back in the day, it's very common to have huge families. Everyone's got 8 brothers and sisters. Because back in the day, it was about survival, right? More kids, more help, more people to generate income, right? Once they hit whatever the legal age, I don't know if it's illegal age, once they can pick up something and work, they have an increased chance of survival. Plus, that whole generation of big families is huge. And it created a safety net in case any of the kids died, right? Another thing, so being the youngest helped. The second thing was almost all, I would say all now, all of my extended family still live in Hong Kong. So none of them really immigrated here. Because they like where they are. You know, like I have an aunt who did immigrate here, but she went back and forth when I was growing up. And now my cousin lives in Hong Kong too. Like once he finished school, he went back. And she just goes back there, back and forth regularly to see him because, you know, he's her kid. And also most of my family don't really have a desire to like come out to the Wild Wild West. I'm not saying most because I honestly don't really know them that well. And I'm grasping at my straws with what my parents are telling me. Like they just kind of like, they like Hong Kong. They like the hustle and bustle and they like being able to walk, you know, like just, I don't know, the livelihood of it. Is their home. They just never had a desire to come out here. Plus, like if you think about a plane ticket to Canada versus from Hong Kong versus a plane ticket to Japan or Malaysia or Singapore, like what's more fun? You know, like you want to do mountains and forest and being cold and snow and stuff like that, or you know, like food and shopping and food and more shopping, right? For a lot less. So when it came down to like who to invite. And I'll talk more about the guest list in my second part. There weren't too many randoms, right? Like they physically weren't here that my parents wanted at the table. You know, like the randoms. You know, like the auntie who held you that one time when you were 8 months old and all they can talk about is how chubby you were and how heavy you were for her. And then you're like, Dad, I don't even know her, and you want me to kick my best friend from university off the list to invite her. And then your dad would be like, yeah, she did so much for our family back in the day. When we were struggling, she let us live in her basement while I was looking for a job. We owe it to her. And you're like, fuck that, you know, Dad. I'm not having some random lady at my wedding. And then the guilt would set in, and you'd like cross off Becky's name and just like add Mrs. Chang or whatever. And then on the wedding day, Mrs. Chang decides to bring a friend. And you're like, what the fuck? And then you're like, and then you become the bridezilla because yelling at your dad across the restaurant while he's like schmoozing with some other family friend who wasn't supposed to be invited. Oh, that's like, you know, you don't want that to happen. Anyway, a drama-free upbringing leads to a drama-free wedding. So even though I published a book called How to Deal with Asian Parents, it's not like they did everything wrong, okay? And I think the title of the book has a lot of connotations with it, right? It's like dealing with your parents, because they're a huge problem. You know, but they aren't like a huge problem for me. There are a lot of things that they taught me that I want to preserve for my kids, you know, from resourcefulness, making sure that I preserve my native tongue, native language, you know, the food, quality family time, ensuring we were in extracurricular activities. There are many things that my parents taught me that I value and I want to preserve for my kids and actively preserving for them. And another thing that I also want to preserve for my kids that my parents did very well at is having a very low tolerance for family drama. My parents are relatively drama-free people. And so before I go on, like I really want to distinguish what drama-free means to me. And there's a lot of people who kind of have the wrong, I guess, definition. Well, not wrong, I'm not saying wrong, but just this is my definition of what drama-free means. A person who is drama-free doesn't mean they don't have problems. And it's not like someone who's drama-free isn't always happy and calm and stress-free, and there's like this like super boho high, hopped on drugs or whatever. Everyone has issues, okay? And drama-free just means someone who's completely confident and secure with themselves, that they express their emotions and problems in a respectful and mature manner. And they don't project their own insecurities and issues onto other people, and they don't spread rumors or gossip as a way to make themselves feel better or feel significant. And someone who has drama or is drama, I guess, not drama free, what they like is to hear unfortunate information about people. They like to know the bad stuff, because it makes them feel good. And like often they like to be that source of reason, like that person who people will confide in to fix their problems. They want to be a fixer, right? And they want to know everyone's problems so they can go fix them. And they also want to, and to feed into that, they want to know everything and everyone, because that's how their significance is defined. Their significance is defined how much they know and how much they can fix. It's not actually about who they are. And their self-esteem, like, they replenish their self-esteem by baiting other people to trash talk, right? Oh, did you hear about so-and-so? You hear, like, oh, what's going on? Like, and they're the ones who will promise not to say anything to anyone, but then when they turn their back, they'll tell your secret to the next person they see. They have loose lips because they're proud of them, right? And they're the ones who are going to start their sentences off with, oh, I shouldn't be telling you this, but, right? And when they experience misfortune and when they experience pain, they'll overshare, and they'll want others to join their pity party. They'll be like, they'll say things that like, oh, I'm in a struggle just like you. Remember when you did this and that, and then you fell and you failed and blah blah blah. That's just like me right now, like, and they just bring you feel. It's like they feel like they'll start to reap what they believe they've sown. It's sad, but there are unfortunately Asian kids who have parents who are drawn to drama like a moth to a flame. And because of their loose lips, and because they're proud of their loose lips of being the source of reason, it prevents the kids from being honest with their parents. And the kids have a really tough time building trust with their parents, and the parents really have a tough time building trust with their kids, because they're unable to share any aspect of their life with them, because their kids fear that, whatever they tell their parents will tell everyone, literally everyone, from a family friend to a neighbor to a stranger sitting beside them at the doctor's office. They will share your secret. And when kids grow up in that environment where they don't have that trust with their parents, because every secret that they've told them has been exposed just across everyone, then it's really hard for the kid to show vulnerability with other people, because they're paranoid. They become very paranoid about the information that they share, because they don't know how that information is going to be used, and they have an assumption, a preconceived notion that information will be used against them, because it's happened to them in the past. Like, they hold their cards close to their heart, because in the past, when they've let their guard down with their parents, they got burned with it. They got burned for it. So when you have that type of parent, it's really hard to have open and honest conversations with them. But I'm so just incredibly grateful that my parents did well by me, and really, like, the stars aligned. This was something I couldn't control, right? I can't control who my parents are. And I really give credit to my parents for being trustworthy. Like, I know when I talk about so the thing is, when they talk about what's going on the Chan side of the Chan family, like my mom and dad's family, they really don't make a big deal out of it, right? Like, well, another reason is because most of my extended family are physically on the other side of the world. That gossip isn't really gossip, because gossip is only gossip when it's meaningful or has some sort of, like, it's juicy, right? Because the information they tell me doesn't really mean much to me, because my relationship with my cousins, I didn't grow up with my cousins, aunts, and uncles all around me, right? They're like, my relationships with my cousins, aunts, and uncles is almost like as distant as the person watching this right now. So it was out of sight, out of mind. They physically weren't present in my life. So when my parents will say, like, oh, so-and-so is getting married, or so-and-so is getting a divorce, or so-and-so is becoming a lawyer, or so-and-so lost their, or so-and-so is having a kid, and so-and-so has cancer, and so-and-so died. It's like hearing the news for me, right? I'd be like, oh, wow, oh, damn, that sucks, or oh, man, that's great, or which cousin is that again, right? Like, growing up without my aunts, uncles, and cousins around, it has its benefits, not just for the lack of drama, but in a way, it's given me a lot of courage, or shall I say lack of paranoia, because I'm not really that paranoid, to share these thoughts and feelings online, right? To do what I do right now. Because at the end of the day, even if these family members that are physically out there talk about me and gossip about me and say shit about me, even if they do, like I don't even know if they do. They might praise me. I don't know. Like, I just don't have that history. I don't have that built up relationship of growing up with them to care enough about their opinion. Because our relationship, like, and it's I'm gonna lay it matter of fact, is really only by blood. And maybe, I mean, I don't like to rule out everything, but maybe in the future, a cousin will immigrate, or someone will immigrate here, and I get to have a really good relationship with them, and that's when I'll start to care. But until then, like, I won't know. Like, in a lot of ways, it's made my immediate family, with me and my mom and my dad and my sisters, really close, because we leaned on each other a lot, and we still do. Like, the downside, I mean, my childhood would have been a lot more lively, though, like if my aunts and uncles and cousins were all around, more Yeet Lao, right? And perhaps I'd have a few more family members to confide in than I do. But, like, honestly, that I will never know, because it's what's happened has happened. What I'm really grateful for is that my secrets are kept secrets from my parents. Like, I know my secrets are safe with my parents. Like, whatever I tell them, if I tell them don't say anything, they literally will not say anything. And they know how to navigate that political climate if they are around other people. It's huge. So here's a little story about, like, how my mom is just completely loyal to her kids. And this is something that I strive to be as a mom. Like, when I found out I was pregnant with our son, I told my parents right away, because I needed their emotional support. Like, I needed them to understand the emotional, like, when you're pregnant, there's a lot of hormones that go up and down. You're kind of just not really yourself. And I needed them to understand that, to appreciate that I may be a little bit more on edge, a little less patient, more snappy than I usually am. And it's not them, but, because I was pregnant. Doesn't obviously give me an excuse to lash out, but it's like I needed them to have that context. Plus, the practical reasons is I needed them to watch my daughter while I went to the doctor's appointments. So I had just found out. I told them not to say anything to anyone, and specifically my in-laws. And they kept my promise, like kept their promise. Because at the 3-month mark, when we told everyone, my parents had dim sum with my in-laws, just the 4 of them. And my mother-in-law pulls my mom aside and asked, "Did you know before we did, or did you know before her?" And my mom's slick words, right? Like, no, but I did wonder why she went to the doctor so often, more than usual, right? Like, it's kind of like lying, but like just very almost truthful, but not truthful. Like, obviously it's not truthful at all, but like, it's very, I don't know. She just has a way. My mom's very sneaky. Anyway, I know this happened because my mom, even though she's very sneaky, her loyalty is to her kids. I know this happened because literally right after the dim sum, my mom tells me this. Like, she calls me and tells me. And that's how I'm going to be with my kids. Like, their secrets are safe with me, because that trust is golden. My kids need to feel safe telling me things without fear of me sharing it with the world. Like, if they tell me, don't tell so-and-so, I'll be like, hell no, I will not tell anyone until you tell me I can. And as like someone who doesn't believe in superstitions, or like there's a whole blog post about Chinese superstitions. Basically, to me, luck is about hard work meets opportunity. Anyway, I thank my lucky stars for being the youngest. It was something I couldn't have control over. And it just happened. For having all my extended family who live far away, didn't immigrate here. And lastly, thank my lucky stars that my parents will take secrets to their grave, because those 3 things definitely contributed to a relatively peaceful wedding. But of course, and for my next part of this 2-part series, if you aren't the youngest, maybe you have all your family here up close and personal in your shit, and your parents are prone to gossip like moths to a flame, then there are some things that I had control over that help minimize the family drama. Then you can help with your wedding. So stay tuned.